Airport employees of Reddit, what is the strangest, funniest, scariest thing that happened at your airport? A little different, but I work avionics on F-22s in the Air Force. Most of the work is done outside. One day on mid-shift we get told to go inside, turn off the lights, and not look outside. Not knowing what the hell was going on, we obviously complied. Once everyone was inside, the big stadium lights that covered the entire airfield were turned off and all the entire airfield was dark. We heard low rumbling in the distance that was getting closer and rumors started flying. We were under attack, aliens, you name it. Eventually we could hear 3 large planes fly very low overhead and be gone. After 15 more minutes we were given the go-ahead to go back outside and back to work. To this day I still don't know what the hell happened. I would assume that it was a classified prototype they didn't want SE. Not an employee but a passenger. I got flagged for a random sap pat down and the agent asked me if I had any metal in my body, to which I said I have an IUD. The agent freaks out and starts flagging other agents over. She musters all her calm and says please repeat that you have an IED on you, to which I had to say no. An IUD, a copper intrauterine device for birth control. She didn't know what an IUD was. I bet she'll remember now. Not nearly as funny but similar misunderstanding of IUD. Grandmother, you better start taking birth control if you don't want to get pregnant. Me, well, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I got an IUD. Grandmother shakes head unbelievable. Drinking and driving. Apostrophe. I work at my local airport. I live on a tiny island and this airport is smaller than a library, and just last summer we had a hurricane looming down on us. Everyone is getting packed up to evacuate. We are renting cars like crazy to people fleeing, and we are trying to get them out of the storm area. I was out checking on the cars we had, and when I walked back up there was a man sitting on a bench out front, with an apocalyptic looking storm bearing down on us, wind whipping everywhere, just soulfully playing the trombone. No idea where he came from or what he was doing, but it was surreal. Like something out of a David Lynch film. Edit. To clarify, this island is tiny, but it is also very close off the coast, and has a bridge to the mainland. I'm pretty sure he was just doing his job. Well, if his job was to be memorable, he certainly was. I'll remember that moment to my dying day, because it was so ducking cinematic. I was just waiting for the dramatic voiceover to kick in, or some woman dressed all in bright red to stroll past, or some other cliche opening bit for an artsy film. Worked at Perth Airport until recently. Most flights in Perth go to Bali, and you see some ride characters read Bali Boggins. A Jetstar flight was delayed by 7 hours and a woman and her husband used the time to get absolutely shit-faced. The woman fancied a cigarette and, rather than go outside and go through security again, lit up in the middle of the duty free. My colleagues quickly tried to stop her, but she told them to duck off. Cue airport police, $10,000 fine, and no flight to Bali. Should have listened to the staff. $10,000 fine. Jesus, y'all don't duck around with cigarettes inside the terminal, do you? I used to do cargo for Delta and British Airways. We ship a lot of dead people, a lot of animals too. They actually sent me to LA to go to a class entirely on animal handling. There's regulations and procedures for everything all the way up to elephants and whales and shit. Weirdest thing we ever got to actually ship was an alligator of some sort. A whale. On an airplane. Flying. Pittsburgh International. 3 AM or so several years ago. Watched an older woman tumble down the up escalator. Every time she flipped over she yelled I'm okay like Philbert from Rocco's Modern Life. Flop I'm okay, flop I'm okay, flop I'm okay rolled in place for maybe a minute before someone shut the thing off. That sounds hilariously painful. I worked at a corporate aircraft maintenance place, and we had a situation where this crazy woman somehow got out on the secured ramp area. By the time one of our line service guys saw her, she had the main entry door opened up on a Global XRS aircraft. When he pulled up she looked at him and asked if he could help her get her bags on board. When he told her he couldn't, she told him she was going to fly the plane to China and didn't want to be late. After that occurrence the security at our airport became insane. I have so many questions. Not an employee. Dad ran a business in Missouri and hired a mechanic who ended up being horrible. Left his tools everywhere. Trucks he worked on would break down. Everything was covered in oily fingerprints, etc. Employee was fired and forgot. Fast forward a few years. My parents are on their honeymoon in Cancun getting on the plane to come back home, when the pilot announces over the PA system that the plane can't take off for a while because of maintenance. My dad looks out the window at the wing and sees oily fingerprints and tools all over the wing and the ground. His old mechanic walks out from under the wing and begins working under a panel on the wing. Dad gets super worried and wants off the plane immediately. Edit for all the questions. No, he didn't get off since they'd paid for the flight. I don't think mom was going to let them leave in a million years. They made it safely home, or I wouldn't be here to tell you all the story. My mom worked for British Airways for years, dealing with special freight cases for import/export. Much of this freight was offloaded and put in a holding warehouse for customers to collect. It wasn't your typical suitcases and luggage of traveling passengers. One shipment came in from Africa, a large wooden crate that didn't actually weigh very much. Her client came in, opened the crates to check the contents and immediately became hugely irate to the warehouse staff. He barges into her office holding a frozen, venomous snake. She said it looked like a jagged lightning bolt, all zigs and zags. He's screaming at her in the office, gesturing wildly with this dead snake, demanding compensation in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Turns out he didn't declare them as animals, probably to get around any customs laws. There were dozens, if not hundreds of various venomous snakes in the crate. The cargo area of most planes isn't heated, so the poor snakes had frozen literally to death in transit. He couldn't sue and had to answer some interesting questions from the Treasury Department once all was said and done. The sucky thing is he was importing them to make anti-venom. If he'd only declared them and paid for them to be shipped correctly, he would have made a health profit and probably saved some lives. Edit. Thanks everyone for the comments. We've learned anti-venom is another word for antivenin, that modern planes have heated cargo areas, and that Samuel L. Jackson was sorely missed in a warehouse 30 odd years ago. Going to take a moment to say that you should make sure you check with your carrier if you're flying with pets or even venomous snakes, and make sure you do it safely. As one of the commenters posted, please don't ship your wife in a box on vacation. I used to work for WhatsApp and intercepted a human trafficking situation. There was a guy and a lady and a little boy, but the lady wasn't allowed to speak. The little boy looked scared, but didn't say anything. He wouldn't even look at me, so it freaked me out. I told my supervisor and she called the airport PD. As soon as he saw me go talk to my supervisor, he looked sort of agitated. He sent the lady and the little boy down the terminal, and he was trying to grab all of their things to go meet them. The police showed up and asked me for a description. Since the airport wasn't big, he found them and brought them back to the checkpoint. As they got closer to the checkpoint, he tried to send the lady to the exit instead of having her come back to the checkpoint. Eventually, the police was able to separate the man from the lady and the little boy. She told them everything. They walked the man out in cuffs. I didn't get to see what happened to her because my shift was ending. But when I grabbed my stuff from the back, we made eye contact and she nodded at me. I took that as a thank you. It was a scary situation, but I'd do it again any day. There's no telling what would have happened to that lady and little boy if I didn't follow my instincts. Edit. Firstly, thank you for the gold, kind stranger. Second, I did not expect this to blow up like this. This happened at Rick about 6 years ago. I kind of hope the lady that was involved sees this and knows I think about her oft. That woman is going to remember you forever. I'll never forget her either. I hope she and her kid got a good, fresh start after that. My time to shine. Most of the airport work is mundane, but you will get the odd passenger that leaves an impression on you. There was a group of people coming through for a business trip and their boss had never flown before. One of his employees came in and explained they told him he needed dental records for WhatsApp and wanted us to play along. So the boss comes in and hands me his ID and an x-ray from his dentist to check in for his flight. Trying not to laugh, I show it to my coworker, who points at it and says, "Well, I might have an issue with that." Dude's face went white as a sheet until his employees busted up laughing. He got super red in the face and eventually started laughing at himself. Never let it be said that airports are humorless places. A 767 from our neighbors here on the ramp took a turn to shop on the taxiway in winter and got stuck in the snow/mud. It was stuck there for 36 hours while they brought in their APX guys from their main hub to try and get it out. Meanwhile, 80,000 plus lbs of Amazon orders and other stuff important enough to burn jet fuel to move just had to sit. I can't imagine what it cost them to recover it all in the plane. I can't imagine what it cost. Aviation in a nutshell.